See the video. The video is definitely worthwhile. Go ahead.
Got to give Nika Munoz a lot of credit for this video. I'm Matt Martis. I know a lot of you, being with Scott and Total Partners. I think I'm on my 23rd well.
Yeah, right.
Together with Scott, and Scott and I met each other in 2017. We acquired a shopping center that he owned in Shawnee, Oklahoma, which we still own, and we became friends. And he introduced me to what he did, and after 22 wells later, had a lot of confidence in Scott, how he treats his partners. Is the same way we treat our partners. So we wanted to work with him and Total Partners on the equity raise for this really exciting project, Adams Creek Town Center. The genesis of this project, and I don't know how to get this on that screen.
Just play it like that.
Well, I mean, I don't know how to get, can you mirror that?
Yeah.
So this is our site. It's just under 23 acres. It's currently zoned. And one of the things that we really liked about this particular property is all the infrastructure is already in place. For those of you that aren't familiar with Broken Arrow, it's one of the fastest.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was trying to.
I got it. In Oklahoma, there's been a lot of retail development already occurred. If you're familiar with Bass Pro or Hobby Lobby or Sprouts, this is the BA Expressway, which goes into downtown. And I'll let you watch the rest of the video, which is got some good data. And I'll tell you how we arrived at this data. There you go. Okay, so we'll freeze it there. So I'll kind of just get right into the deal, Scott.
Yeah, Matt has lived and breathed this deal. This is his project, and he did it from the ground floor up. It's been over 3 years in development, and I have followed his progress, and he's talked to me about it numerous times, and I had said, hey, is there an opportunity that we might have some room for some of our partners to get into what I consider to be an institutional grade, high quality, high credit, pre-leased. I mean, this is the kind of thing that most people, most passive investors would never see. Anyway, I've got a lot of confidence, and Matt has got information and experience here that has really impressed me, because it's a real talent to bring all the forces together to make something like this happen and for it to be economic. And I mean, down to the ground floor, before he even got started, went to the city of Broken Arrow for a tax increment financing, which brings $16 million to the bottom line for this project before we even as we get started. So right. Anyway, with that background, I'm sorry, sorry for all the technical glitches, but
no problem.
Take it away.
No problem. Again, thanks for your time, and I'll try to be brief. This is a really exciting project. So Adams Creek Town Center, it's 200,000 square foot ground up retail development. And the genesis of this project, this piece of property here, we currently own, and we developed a Tommy's Car Wash on. So for some of you that may be familiar with Tommy's, it's a national brand. We're their preferred developer in the Tulsa market. And as we started to build this project, which is open and operating and exists, we started to study the market in terms of demographics, psychographics, traffic, growth trends, and one of the things that jumped off the page based on our, I don't know if we can get that.
Yeah, let's get the PowerPoint. Let's get the PowerPoint up here.
The data really jumped off the page, and one of the software programs that we use, and I'm a real estate site selection guy. Some of the projects that we've been involved with in the market are the Simon Premium Outlet Mall that's currently being constructed right now. We represented them on that $160 million project and where to place it. Tulsa Hills was a project that we assembled.
We got it. We got it now.
Okay, great.
So you can flip through it.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, got it.
that we assembled. The 100 acres where Tulsa Hills currently sits now, when it was just trees, and everyone said, "What do you mean west of the Arkansas River? You think people will even go west of the Arkansas River?" Well, 1.5 million square feet later, it's been a pretty good project. And so we identified this 23 acres, and as we started to develop, let me see if I can pull a site plan up. As we started to develop the prospects for this project, which now are Kohl's, Burlington, Five Below, Shoe Station, Painted Tree, Pet Supplies Plus, and Burke's Outlet. With the exception of Painted Tree, which does not have a credit rating, all of those tenants are publicly traded and have outstanding credit ratings. Kohl's recently was upgraded. So in our business, the gold standard for us is to identify an A site and to attract high-quality national retail players to the project before you acquire the land. And so in order to do that, you have to have a competent team. You have to have an understanding of what these tenants are looking for. We do site selection for Aldi, Dave & Buster's, Planet Fitness. So each one of these tenants have a certain demographic or a certain customer base that they are going after. The average household income, for example, in Broken Arrow in this location is just over $88,000 a year. If you look at our tenant lineup with Kohl's and Burlington and Five Below, they are targeting kind of that middle market tenant. And so generally speaking, if you can place the right tenants and match them up in the right market, that's a high level for success for everyone. And the project has been very well received. We do have a $16 million retail sales tax incentive from the city of Broken Arrow. That's all been signed. It's been approved by the voters. One of the things that's unique about this project that's not commonly done in Oklahoma is we have created our own special tax district around the 23 acres. And what that means is we are going to add a 1% sales tax to every sale that's generated from this project that will be remitted back to the developer. And that's to offset any of the costs in infrastructure or site work. But when you compile that with the $16 million 2% retail sales tax incentive that we are receiving from the city of Broken Arrow, now you're getting 3 pennies of every dollar spent is coming back to the project. And in today's environment, and it really doesn't matter what tenants that you're building for, if you don't have some type of incentive, the economics to put one of these large projects together are very, very challenged with interest rates and construction costs and the rents that these tenants are used to paying in a market like Tulsa. And so we've kind of have all the key factors. First is a really good piece of property. Second is not a lot of off-site improvement. We don't have to go build streets. We don't have to go build detention ponds. All that already exists in this location. We are going to have to build one median here for the city of Broken Arrow. But all of these anchor tenants, we will have signed leases with them prior to us closing on the land in May. And we also have 50% of, we've got about 12,000 feet of shop space. We're pre-committed on 50% of that. And then we've got 7.5 acres of out parcels available, which is kind of where the upside is in this project. So we are now starting to work with different users to try and maximize the value for each individual out parcel. Yes?
The 84% that was in your document, is that just inclusive of the anchors, not the outside, or is it both?
That's just inclusive of the anchors right now.
So the financials, it was not inclusive of the outside.
No, well, we have made some projections and assumptions on the out parcels based on the tenant demand that we currently have. So we're working with 3 tenants now for this out parcel. And the goal will be, so if you look at our financial projections, one of the things, and I'll kind of skip to that because it's why everyone's here. And this is kind of the sources and uses, but I want to get to your question, which is kind of the 5-year pro forma. So what we modeled in this was really just 1 tenant per out parcel. So we know we believe that we are going to be able to maximize the coverage of each parcel much greater than 1 tenant. But you have to make some assumptions when you put your financial model together, which I think we've been very conservative in our underwriting, which our team always is. That's one of the things that we pride ourselves on. And so after we construct the project and the project is stabilized, we believe it's going to be average around a 10% cash-on-cash return. Pre-tax would be a little bit better. After tax, but that's a long-winded answer to a great question. But we have modeled the out parcels, but only 1 tenant per pad.
And when we looked at the financials, when we went through the detailed financials, there was considerable upside because of that. And you were explaining to me how you're looking at multiple tenants together on an out parcel, which would maximize more square, which would increase the square footage rental and the value of the out parcels.
Absolutely, and what it also does is you maximize the out parcels because you have the 3% incentive. So the more square footage you can add, which means the more retail sales, which means you also get the 3% coming back from each tenant. And the city of Broken Arrow has been wonderful to work with on this project.
Can you discuss some of the tenants? Are you under confidentiality with respect to who you're? Because I know you've got 2 or 3 deals working on those out parcels with names that would be recognized. Okay, well then don't. If it's a problem, but they're names everybody would recognize. They've got deals working on the out parcels.
Yeah, generally speaking, once you start construction on the back of this project, the out parcels and the demand for those increase significantly. So we're very excited to partner with Scott on this. And
something else I'd like to make note of. One of the things we're looking at Total Partners is to have a line of succession in terms of our management going forward. And I asked Matt if he would join me as a co-manager. So we're going to do this deal together from the investment side. So going forward, as I get closer to, I probably won't ever retire, but if I get closer to whatever, we'll still have Matt he's to carry the torch. And I'm real excited about this because this offers, it's a different investment profile, a different investment objective than an oil and gas deal. This is more like, I'd compare it, and I've done, a lot of people may not know this because a lot of people know me from the oil and gas arena, but for 30 years before I got into oil and gas, I did real estate. And I've done a lot of real estate syndications. And the example that I used to give to partners when we were doing those is that this can be looked at like a short-term municipal bond because you're investing your money in something that's a hard asset that if it's rented up on long-term leases with credit tenants, it's like a bankable asset. It produces income. It will continue to produce that income, and the income will appreciate, unlike a bond deal or a long-term CD. And as it appreciates, you're getting tax benefits, you're getting principal reduction, and so 5 years from now, 3 years from now, 7 years from now, whenever that CD matures, aka the property sells, then you have a multiple on your money. Your money is appreciated. Your amortization has paid the loan down, And I believe the conservative pro forma on this shows a 2.21 on your money, so 221% cash return. Doesn't include the tax shelter benefits that you get. And in the meantime, you've got a double-digit tax sheltered income stream. So comparing it to a fixed income asset, this has got the best of all worlds. And that's what especially one like this. I mean,
That's a great way to describe it. Any other questions? Yes, Dave.
Matt, going in, is it your intent to ground lease all of the pads, or are those going to be for sale also? You guys, how do you feel about it?
That's a great question. So every national tenant has a different deal structure that they would like. To give you an example, when we did Tulsa Hills or the Walk at Tulsa Hills, Texas Roadhouse, their preference is a ground lease. Chewy's preference is for you to build their building and give them some money, and it's more of a build to suit. There are some tenants that only, only want to acquire the property. So what we've tried to do, and none of these have been platted, right? Currently, that's one large lot, and that's one large lot. The lot lines shown are just arbitrary. Because what you don't want to do is come in and split the lots before you know who the users are. And so our model shows a combination of both sale, ground lease, build to suit, and we just evaluate those opportunities as they present themselves. But that's a really good question. Richard?
Matt, give me a timetable. Here it is, March. We're going to invest in March. We're going to start building.
Sure.
October, we're going to start paying back. We're going to start doing what? How are you going to handle it?
So
2
we're
years of construction.
that's a great question. So we will call for funds in April, close in May, start construction in August, and it's an 18-month construction time frame, at least on the larger power center portion of the project. We will probably have out parcel users that we finalize deals with during those 18 months. When you build for national retailers, and I do want to talk about our joint venture partner, Parks Development Group out of Nashville. When you build for these type of national retailers, they are very specific on their opening windows, right? They only have certain times of year that they want to open or will open. They're not going to open in November, right? They want to be open at least by October to be ready for the holidays, or they're not going to open in February. They'll want to wait till the spring. And so you need to have a construction and development partner that understands that and is used to building this type of project throughout the country and for these specific tenants. Because when these guys tell Wall Street that they're going to open 40 stores next year and we commit to doing that, they take that very seriously. And there are penalties in the leases for you not opening on time. So that's the present schedule. We already have most of our entitlements. We've got a few site plan specific things to work through with Broken Arrow. But the plan would be to start in August.
One thing to interject here, when we first talked about this, they had not considered putting an initial rate of return. It was going to be based on cash flow when the stores were occupied, when the project was completed. And I told Matt that I felt like there needed to be some consideration given to the equity component on the front end. So they reworked the model, and from the time that you invest, my understanding is it will be an accrued and or paid 4% annual return minimum, and that will be part of the preferential return going forward. So if it's not paid in the initial time frame, it will be made up in future cash flow and or refinance or sale. Then once it goes to operational stage, once it's completed and occupied, then the excess cash flow comes in at 85% of total cash flow is committed to the equity partners, and with a minimum of an 8% preferential is then accruing, if not paid, which has to be made up in all those circumstances, but they anticipate, based on their pro forma, that it will do, once it's operating, it'll do double digits, over 10%. That's likely going to be, it's passive income. It's going to be sheltered because of the depreciation on the property. And then as time goes forward, that cash flow can increase. And I've been through the detail on these projections with Matt. They have assumed top of the cost of interest on, in other words, they figured it at the cap. They've got loans in place with a cap and that's floating under the cap. So they're assuming the highest interest rate, and they're assuming, in the case of the out parcels, the lowest utilization. And so if you, and under that scenario, you got a double-digit yield once it's up and running. So that's where it, comparison like a bond deal comes in. But a minimum of a preferential 8% has to be made up, and then eventually, when the project is refinanced or sold, then those preferentials are if they haven't been paid, and that's where they get. So in other words, they have structured the equity component to be to provide a significant return for the risk on the equity. And something else, I had a conference call with the Parks Brothers, by the way, super sharp guys, and we spent about an hour on the phone. And I asked them a lot of very pointed questions. I said, I've been through the real estate game before. What about capital calls? I mean, no. It is in the operating agreement that equity capital calls are prohibited. So this is no capital calls, which I think is another huge advantage. And you've got the protection of everything that this project's going to do has to meet those preferential returns plus 100% return of capital. So is that?
It's a great opportunity.
Yeah. Yep. So, and also these things we handed out, guys, you've seen this has been in some email reports we've sent out, but here is the investment summary right here, and it goes through those preferentials, what's paid, and this is in line with the operating agreement. So, there you go.
And I know sometimes if you're not in the real estate business, like I can't visualize what Mike does because it's way below the ground. I deal it above the ground. But this is going to be one of those projects when it comes out of the ground, everybody's going to go, "Wow, did you see that?" And activity begets activity. And when you bring a large project to the market like this, there'll be tenants, and there already are, that show up that we haven't even thought about, right? That are interested in Broken Arrow. And so you're seeing it now with the Outlet Mall, right? For example, that project, now that it's going vertical. And so love to answer any other questions. Yes, Rich.
4% goes to 8% when it says during operating period. What constitutes operating period?
When the tenants start paying rent.
One tenant, 10 tenants?
Stabilized, right? So generally when you build a project back to what the retailers want, you'll grand open it all at one time. They'll all want to open together. And so that's what the operating period would mean. Daniel could, I don't know if you wanted to answer that question in the operating agreement, but
also, and maintaining some sort of debt service coverage ratio that matches up with our loan documents.
so that would define operating. So as we get to certain debt coverage, then that kicks off the operating, which, I mean, if it's going to take 18, months to build it, we anticipate that operating period would occur, within 24 months. And we are using a higher interest rate. For example, our current financing structure is 380 points over the 10-year, which would have put it at 7.91% today. So as our rents are constant. We've already negotiated the letters of intent and leases with all of the tenants. So as rates come down, our income stream has already kind of been established. So there's upside, and nobody has a crystal ball on where rates are going to go. But we feel like we've been conservative in our projections. We've got a great tenant lineup, and super excited about it.
Pride of ownership, Tulsa, Broken Arrow. We've had a lot of people that have expressed a very strong interest in this. David, I want to give a shout out to David Hall here. David is pointing his finger at me. David and I go back to junior high school days. And David has been a real estate professional in Tulsa his entire career, and commercial real estate. He manages properties, he sells properties, he leases properties. Well, when I was doing my due diligence, part of the story here is I showed this deal to David, and David had a lot of questions, and I said, well, let's just get you guys together. And we had lunch here about a month ago. And David and Matt sat down, and at the end of the lunch, we walked out in the parking lot, and David says, wow. He said, all the years I've been in this business, I've never seen an opportunity for a ground floor, somebody, you know, at this, to be able to get involved in a project of this caliber and of this sophistication. So David was the first one that gave me a commitment to invest, and I took that as a pretty good sign in my due diligence to have a lifelong friend who is a real estate professional that's on board. So David, now ask your question.
Thank you. Matt, I think it'd be worthwhile. How is Lowe's operating? How does that rank in their hundreds of stores? And also Target. There's your two anchors. I think that speaks pretty well of what kind of site you've got here.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons we started on the site. And in the software program we have, we're able to enter in specific tenants, and it will tell us how many visits per year go to that store. It will benchmark that store versus the other stores in Oklahoma or the submarket and nationally. And so when we were doing our due diligence, we plugged in the Lowe's and we compared it to what we know to be a very good store at Tulsa Hills and Woodland Hills. And the Lowe's data was 20 to 25% better comparatively to Tulsa Hills and Woodland Hills store, which that really shocked me, right? Because I know how well the Tulsa Hills location does. And so we did that for Marshall's. Then we confirmed with the city that the sales for these retail tenants are very high. Marshall's is doing over $12 million, which is probably top 10% in their entire chain. And so there's still a retail demand, and I confirmed with the city this morning because different tenants ask for different kinds of support. But there still is a major retail leakage in Broken Arrow. So a lot of the Broken Arrow customers, South Broken Arrow, Wagner, Coweta, this shopping center draws from a pretty large radius. They are currently going into Tulsa to shop, right? And so that's why the city of Broken Arrow, they have their own due diligence as well. So they wouldn't commit to a $16 million package if they didn't believe that was going to pay off for them in the future. And so that's one of the reasons they've identified as well a need for soft goods. And I'll get into a little bit of the retail weeds if you care to know. But so 85% of retail transactions is driven by the female. So I may go to Lowe's, but my wife told me to go to Lowe's and pick something up, right? So when you look at the tenant mix that we have, it's primarily soft goods, which will drive the shopping decisions of the household. And that's proven data. And so the city of Broken Arrow understands that. And so when we brought together this lineup of Kohl's and Burlington and these soft goods retailers that they don't have in the market, right? And when we went to Kohl's and Burlington and Shoe Station and we presented the project, they all said yes fairly quickly. And the comment that was interesting, and Garrett and Nika were in a lot of the meetings, was we've been looking at Broken Arrow for 8 years. We just didn't have a project that we could go into. And so once we kind of got rolling on the lease up, it's gone very well. We've got a great team in place. It's going to be a really good project. It's going to be one that I think we're going to be proud of, and the pride of ownership is real. That's one of the reasons Parks has allowed us to, and I asked them if we could raise the equity here locally. I mean, we can raise the money. It's not a huge ask $10 million. But to be able to do that locally with folks that'll be able to touch it, feel it, see the project, I think that matters. We've had success with our past investments to be able to source, I'd say a majority, 50% of our capital with local investors. We will have some of our other folks from out of state involved. But I do want to touch on the Parks Development Group briefly. And we can make this package available to you all. But I think it's important to know who Parks is. So Parks is I think they've been in business just under 40 years. The Walk at Tulsa Hills, you guys may be familiar with this. So we put this together in conjunction with Parks in 2010. It's Hobby Lobby and AMC. This is at 81st and Highway 75, just south of Tulsa Hills. They still own this asset. It's a $45 or $50 million asset so they're already committed to Tulsa. They have a presence here, which mattered to me on who to partner with. And they care about the Tulsa market. The Oaks is a project that they still own, over $1 million. I think it started at 300,000 square feet. It's larger than that now in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. But you can see the tenants, national tenants, and they built Bass Pro Shops. They built movie theaters. They've constructed for themselves and for others. And so they know what it takes to get a project out of the ground. Similar, this is Nashville West, and Garrett and I have been there in Nashville. It's an amazing project. It's got a little park in it. Remember that they
And they bring construction.
They bring the construction component that, frankly, there's not many firms in Oklahoma. They can construct the project, but can they deal with the nuances of Kohl's and Burlington and how they want their space delivered? And if you're not in that business every day, and then it's very, very challenging to know what you don't know. Parks has a 500,000 square foot shopping center being developed in Birmingham, Alabama, but also other developers hire Parks to construct their projects. They built in 48 states. There's not too many people that can say
I was on
that.
my due diligence call with those guys, and I said, well, tell me about your track record. I said, what kind of vacancy are you running in all these projects? And they go, we don't have any vacancy. We're 100% occupied nationwide. So,
True statement. So I think that's, any other questions?
Matt will be here for people, we'll all be here for people that want to have individual questions, a little one-on-one. But if there's not anything else for the group, we ran a little over today. Yes, Mike.
Is there time to drill a well on that lot before you drill?
Great closer.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right,
Thank
thanks
you.
everybody for being here today. Appreciate your time.